I've worked at the diner for almost 3 years now, and honestly, it's a quiet place. Not many big events happen here, just regulars coming in for their morning coffee or families stopping by after church. But this day was different. It all started when a group of bikers pulled up outside. I saw them through the window as I was wiping down the counter. They revved their engines as they parked, their leather jackets and tattoos looking intimidating. My heart skipped a beat, but I tried not to show it. I had seen bikers before. Some were nice, others not so much. But this group felt different. There was an air of something darker around them, something menacing. They came in, not caring much for the usual warm welcome we give to customers. They walked straight to the counter, the sound of their heavy boots echoing across the quiet diner. I forced a smile and greeted them. "What can I get you?" One of them, a tall guy with a thick beard, leaned in close, his breath smelling like cigarettes. "How about you stop acting so sweet and make us some real food, huh?" He laughed, but it wasn't friendly. It was threatening. I swallowed hard, trying not to show how nervous I felt. "Of course," I said, my voice shaking just a bit. "What would you like?" They ordered some burgers, but it wasn't the food that was bothering me. It was the way they were looking at me. Like they were judging me, daring me to do something wrong. They were trouble. I could feel it. As I turned to go into the kitchen, one of them, the guy with the thick beard, made a loud remark. "Hey, don't take too long, sweetheart. We're hungry, and we don't like waiting." The others chuckled, and I just nodded, trying to ignore the pit in my stomach. It was then that I saw him. The young cook, Michael. He wasn't like the bikers, not even close. He was quiet, always working hard in the kitchen, keeping to himself. He had this calmness about him, something that made me feel safe, even when the world outside felt like it was about to crumble. I never knew much about him, just that he came from a small town and had a job here after leaving the army. He never talked about his past, but there was something in his eyes that made me wonder. Now, as I watched him move around the kitchen, preparing the food for the bikers, I had no idea that the situation was about to take a dark turn. As I placed the order in front of the bikers, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. They were being louder than usual, mocking the other customers who were just trying to enjoy their meals in peace. But then, one of them, big, burly, and covered in tattoos, stood up, causing the whole diner to fall silent. "You know, sweetheart," he said, his eyes narrowing at me as he took a long drag from his cigarette, "you really ought to learn your place in a place like this. You're not even good enough to serve people like us." I felt my face heat up with embarrassment. The others laughed, but there was something cruel behind their laughter. I wanted to cry, to run into the back and hide, but I stood there, frozen. That's when Michael stepped out of the kitchen, his hands still dusted with flour from the dough he had been kneading. His calm demeanor was always a relief, but today, it made me nervous, like he was the calm before a storm. "Is there a problem here?" Michael's voice was steady, his eyes scanning the bikers. There was no fear in him, just quiet authority. The bikers stopped laughing. For a moment I saw a flicker of something. Disbelief, maybe? They didn't expect him to speak up. The big guy with the beard took a step forward, cracking his knuckles. "You've got a problem with us, boy?" The biker's voice was rough, like gravel scraping on metal. Michael didn't flinch. "No, I don't. I just think you're treating her disrespectfully, and that's not something I'm gonna stand for." I could hardly believe what I was hearing. Michael, the quiet cook who never said much, was standing up to these guys. He wasn't backing down. The tension in the diner grew thick, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. The bikers looked at each other, unsure of what to do next. The tall, bearded guy sneered. "You think you can talk to us like that?" he growled, taking a step closer to Michael. Michael didn't move, didn't even blink. He stood tall, shoulders straight, as though he was daring them to make a move. But there was something else, something about the way he held himself that made me think he wasn't just a cook. No, there was more to Michael than I had ever imagined. The bikers hesitated, clearly confused by the sudden shift in power. That's when I saw it, just the tiniest flash of recognition in Michael's eyes. It was as though something inside him had snapped, and he was ready to take control. The bikers had no idea who they were messing with. The tension was unbearable. The air felt thick, and every second that passed seemed to stretch longer than the last. I couldn't breathe properly, my eyes flicking between Michael and the bikers. I could feel my hands trembling, but Michael? He was as calm as ever. The way he stood there, not backing down, made me wonder just how much he had seen in his past. The big guy with the beard, clearly frustrated with the silence, took another step toward Michael. His face was red with anger, and I braced myself for a confrontation that would surely escalate. But then Michael spoke, his voice low, steady, and full of something I couldn't quite place. "You don't want to do this," Michael said, his gaze never leaving the biker. The guy scoffed. "Oh, really? And why is that, kid?" Michael's lips curled into a small, knowing smile, something almost menacing about it. "Because I'm not who you think I am." I blinked, confused. What did that mean? What was he talking about? For a brief moment, there was a flicker of something in Michael's eyes. Something intense, something powerful. It was like a storm brewing, waiting to break. And then, without warning, Michael reached for the edge of the counter, his movements swift and controlled. He wasn't just a cook. He wasn't just a quiet guy who kept to himself in the kitchen. "Let me make this clear," Michael continued, his voice now sharper, commanding. "I'm not someone you want to mess with. I've been trained for situations like this, and I promise you, it won't end well for you." The bikers froze. For a split second, I saw the fear in their eyes. Real fear. It wasn't the kind of look they gave other people. It was something else, something deeper. The leader of the group took a step back, his hands slightly trembling as he reached for his jacket, but Michael didn't flinch. And then it hit me. He wasn't just some cook. I had heard rumors before about soldiers who came back from war, some of them settling in quiet towns trying to start over. But I never connected the dots. I never thought Michael, the quiet cook I always took for granted, was one of them. His past was something he kept hidden, but now, in this moment, it was clear. Michael had been a soldier, a special ops soldier. Someone who had been through things I could never imagine. The calmness he exuded wasn't just because he was used to the quiet of the kitchen. It was because he had seen chaos, and he knew how to handle it. The bikers, realizing they had underestimated him, started to back off slowly, unsure of how to react to the shift in power. The big guy with the beard let out a deep breath and finally spoke, though his voice was filled with uncertainty now. "We don't want any trouble," he muttered, his earlier bravado fading. Michael gave him a sharp nod, the cold edge of his stare still unwavering. "Then leave. And don't come back." The bikers didn't need any more encouragement. They turned around, muttering under their breath, and left the diner as quickly as they had entered. I stood there, still trying to process everything that had just happened, my heart pounding in my chest. Mover didn't say another word. He just turned, his expression returning to its usual calm, as though nothing had happened. I couldn't understand it. How could he switch so effortlessly from standing up to those bikers to simply returning to his work? The bikers were gone, and the diner was eerily quiet once again. I stood there for a moment, my hands still shaking, trying to wrap my head around what had just occurred. The other customers had stayed silent, not knowing how to react, but I could see the looks in their eyes, the confusion, the shock, the relief. It felt like the world had shifted in the span of a few minutes. I glanced over at Michael, who was already back in the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel like nothing had happened. He was moving with the same calm precision he always did, as if his face-off with those bikers was just another Tuesday for him. But I couldn't let it go. I needed to know more. I needed to understand how someone so unassuming could have that kind of power, how he could turn into a completely different person in an instant. I walked toward the kitchen, my legs feeling heavy as I approached the door. When I stepped inside, Michael was stirring a pot, his back to me. The soft clink of utensils was the only sound in the room. "Michael?" My voice felt small, hesitant. He didn't turn around right away. I wasn't sure if he had even heard me. But after a few long seconds, he stopped what he was doing and slowly looked over his shoulder. His eyes met mine, and for the first time I saw a flicker of something almost vulnerable. "You okay?" I asked, the question coming out before I could stop myself. I couldn't help it. After what had just happened, I needed to know if he was okay. He nodded, but his expression was unreadable. Yeah, I'm fine. I took a small step forward, my curiosity getting the better of me. Michael, what happened out there? You were so different. You scared them. I mean, I've never seen you like that. For a moment, Michael didn't say anything. He simply turned back to the stove, stirring the pot with a slow, deliberate motion. Then, after what felt like an eternity, he spoke. It's not a big deal. I've just been trained to handle situations like that. My heart skipped. Trained? For what? He hesitated, as if weighing whether or not to say more. Finally, he sighed and set the spoon down, turning to face me fully. I wasn't always a cook. Before this, I was a soldier. Special forces. I've seen things, done things that I don't like talking about, but it's part of who I am. I felt my breath catch in my throat. I had never imagined that Michael, the quiet guy who kept to himself, had such a past. I had no idea what he had gone through, what kind of life he had lived before he came here. The pieces finally clicked into place. The calmness, the quiet strength, the ability to stand his ground without flinching. I swallowed hard, trying to process the flood of emotions that hit me. Why didn't you tell me? I whispered. Michael gave a small shrug, his eyes distant. I didn't want anyone to look at me differently. I just wanted a fresh start, a place where I could forget everything, where I could be just another guy in a diner. I felt a lump form in my throat. I had no idea what you went through. His gaze softened, just a little, as he looked at me. Not many do. There was a long silence between us, and I didn't know what to say. I wanted to tell him that I understood, that I was here for him, but I didn't have the right words. Finally, Michael broke the silence again, his voice quiet but steady. It's in the past now. What matters is what I do from here on out. I'm just trying to move forward. I nodded slowly, my heart aching for him. I knew he was carrying something heavy, something that would never fully go away. But there was a part of me that admired him even more now. The strength he showed wasn't just physical, it was emotional too. He had survived things I couldn't even imagine, and yet, here he was, standing in front of me, trying to make a life for himself. And in that moment, I realized something. Michael wasn't just the cook in the kitchen anymore. He was someone who had faced darkness and come out the other side. He was someone I would never underestimate again. The rest of the shift passed quietly, but the silence between Michael and me wasn't uncomfortable anymore. It was understanding, like an unspoken agreement that we both knew something important had shifted between us. I didn't ask him more about his past that day, and he didn't offer any more details. We simply carried on with our work, side by side, in a comfortable, quiet rhythm. But something in me had changed too. I couldn't help but admire him even more. His strength, his ability to stay calm in the face of danger. I had always seen him as just the quiet cook, but now I saw him as something far more complex, far more incredible. When the evening shift was winding down, I took a deep breath and decided I had to say something to him. I couldn't just walk away, act like everything was the same. Not after what had happened, not after everything I had learned. I found Michael wiping down the counter, his expression back to its usual calm, but I knew better now. I knew that there was more beneath the surface. Michael, I started, my voice shaky but determined. I just wanted to say thank you for what you did today. I don't think anyone else could have handled that the way you did. You saved all of us. I mean, you scared them away without even raising a hand. He gave a small, almost imperceptible smile. I didn't do it for the thanks. I did it because it was the right thing to do. I nodded, my throat tight. Still, you're amazing. I don't think anyone really knows what you've been through. But you're here, and you're still standing strong. That means something. Michael looked at me then, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of vulnerability in his eyes. You think I'm strong? I nodded again, my heart in my throat. Yeah, I do. There was a long pause, and then Michael did something I wasn't expecting. He's closer, his gaze softening. Thank you, he said quietly. It means a lot to hear that. I didn't know what to say next, so I simply smiled, hoping it conveyed what I felt. Admiration, respect, and something deeper that I couldn't quite put into words. After that day, things between Michael and me changed. There was a new understanding between us. A bond that I couldn't quite explain. He didn't talk much about his past after that, but every now and then, When he caught me looking at him with a question in my eyes, he would offer a small, reassuring smile. And for me, that was enough. Because I knew that, no matter what happened, Michael had earned his place in the world. And though his past was filled with things I could never fully understand, I knew he had a future here now. A future where he wasn't defined by the darkness he had faced, but by the strength he had built from it. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the story and found something meaningful in it. If you did, please take a moment to like, comment, and share. It helps so much in spreading the love. And if you're not already subscribed, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss any future stories. Your support means everything to me and keeps me going. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below. Until next time, take care and keep believing in the power of change.